Welcome back to The Explainer, to all our focused learners out there. Today, we're putting on our linguistic detective hats. We're looking into the concept of sin. And, as you're about to see, our modern understanding of this word has drifted wildly from its ancient origins. Okay, let's dive into this.
I want you to ask yourself for a second, what immediately pops into your head when you hear the word sin? For most of us, it carries this incredibly heavy, culturally loaded connotation, right? We instantly associate it with moral failure, profound guilt, maybe divine punishment, just a dark, inescapable stain on our character. I mean, it's a word that literally sounds heavy when you say it. It feels like a final judgment. But if we actually trace this word back through history, well, we find a completely different story.
So, to understand why we view the concept this way today, we first really need to look at the English root of the word. Our modern word derives from the Old English sin, which meant a violation of divine law or an offense against God. Etymologists actually trace it all the way back to a Proto-Indo-European root that essentially means it is true, or the sin is real. So it establishes a very rigid dogmatic baseline. Right from the very beginning in the English language, this word was designed to describe a severe moral transgression, a true violation. It is inherently punitive.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive paradigm shift that occurs when we step outside the English language entirely. If you look at the original texts of the Bible, so the Hebrew of the Old Testament and the Koine Greek of the New Testament, we actually don't find this doom-laden concept of a permanent moral stain. Instead, we find an incredibly practical, highly physical metaphor. Both of these ancient cultures viewed the concept through the lens of archery and spear throwing. How wild is that?
Let's look at the exact words here. In Hebrew, the word is chet. And just to be absolutely clear, we aren't talking about your friendly neighbor or your accountant named Chet. We're talking about an ancient term with literal archery origins. In Greek, the word is hamartia, and despite originating in two totally different ancient cultures, both of these words share the exact same literal translation, to fail or to miss the mark. They didn't initially describe this evil condition of the soul, they literally described the physical, observable act of an archer or an athlete just failing to hit their intended target. It's this fascinating cross-cultural corroboration of a highly physical metaphor. Let's anchor this metaphor a bit by looking at how the Greek word hamartia was actually used in classical texts way before it ever developed any sort of ethical or theological weight. For instance, in the historical writings of Herodotus, the word is used to describe a hunter throwing a spear at an animal and missing. In Homer's epic poems, the Iliad and the Odyssey, hamartia describes warriors on the battlefield who throw their spears at opponents and miss. And the historian Xenophon uses it explicitly to describe an arrow missing the human target it was aimed at. In all these cases, there is absolutely no cosmic guilt. It is purely a physical miss.
To really bring this into our modern understanding, our source material offers a fantastic analogy. Think of Michael Jordan stepping up to the free throw line. Now, if he has an 88% success rate, we expect him to make 88 out of 100 shots. But when he misses those 12 shots, does he miss them on purpose? Well, of course not. He's attempting to make the shot, he's setting his stance, looking at the basket, but he just falls short. And that is exactly how the ancient writers viewed sinning. We don't purposefully miss the mark in our daily lives, but despite our absolute best efforts, we all just fall short sometimes.
And this brilliantly illustrates a massive shift in how we can view ancient sacred texts. Take the Torah, for example, the foundation of Judaism. When we apply this etymological lens, the word Torah actually translates to take aim. Suddenly, we aren't looking at a strict, punishing book of arbitrary mandates just designed to catch you doing something wrong. Instead, it becomes a literal archer's guide. It's a manual giving you the stance, the grip, and the mechanics to help you take better aim at the target of life.
So if the Torah is the manual on how to take aim, then what exactly is the target? Well, in the Jewish tradition, there are 613 mitzvot, or commandments. But think of these mitzvot not as burdensome rules, but as 613 individual bullseyes. They are righteous acts, good deeds, acts of kindness. Every single time you perform a mitzvah, you are basically an archer pulling back the bow, steadying your breathing, taking aim, and hitting the target. And when you hit that bullseye, the tradition says you connect directly with God. This entire archery metaphor really culminates in the High Holy Days, specifically Yom Kippur, the Day of Repentance. During this solemn day, communities gather to recite a repeated liturgy called the Al-Chet. Now, for centuries, this has been translated into English as a confession of sin. But with our new understanding, we know that Al-Chet literally translates to the missed mark.
It's not about groveling. It is a collective, communal acknowledgement of all the arrows that simply didn't hit the bullseye over the past 12 months.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a highly actionable framework. Yom Kippur isn't about wallowing in unredeemable guilt, it is the archer's annual review. Step 1, you examine the targets you set for yourself over the past year. Step 2, you walk down the range and honestly look at exactly where your arrows landed. I mean, did you hit the center, the outer ring, or did you miss completely? And finally, step 3, you adjust your stance, correct your grip, and set new intentions for the next shot.
That final step of setting an intention is captured perfectly in another Hebrew word, kavanah. Generally translated as intention or spiritual focus, kavanah actually shares an etymological root with the word for to aim. This proves that in this ancient framework, the solution to a sin, or, to a missed mark, is never endless guilt or doom. The solution is entirely practical. You simply pause, reset your kavanah, adjust your aim, and practice to be a better archer in the coming year.
So the crucial point is this: words shape our reality. By untangling the heavy English word sin from the practical ancient words chet and hamartia, we reclaim a deeply forgiving framework for human error. If making a mistake isn't a permanent stain on your soul, but simply an arrow that drifted in the wind, how does that change the way you view your own life? How does it change how quickly you forgive yourself and how confidently you draw back the bow to take your very next shot? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep adjusting your aim, and I'll catch you on the next one.